not sure that Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate I've got Bryan Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. He's the most overrated player. And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a championship defense. And Mitch, I'm sure Dancing with the Stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion, that's your bad.
You are now listening to Open Season. Your host, Billy
Allen. It's the Open Season Show, and I'm your host, Billy Allen. I am sitting here with Frankie Bratica. We are live from Seasons 52 here in Chestnut Hill. We'll tell Bryan Murphy, our producer, to open up the phone line, 617-702-2542. We're chewing on a lot of NBA fat tonight, everyone. The Celtics. It is, Celtics fans are seeing green. I mean, you got to be throwing up in your mouth right now if you're a Celtics fan. The Jazz look great. They look like the best team in the NBA. Andre Drummond's on the trade block. I mean, what else can we say? It's going to be NBA heavy all night long. We're talking about Anthony Davis's injury. He's going to be out a couple weeks. Can LeBron and the Lakers survive without him? But first, Frankie, let's talk a little bit about the Utah Jazz. We talked about them a few weeks ago. They were on a 12-game winning streak at that time. We said this team can't possibly be the best team in the NBA, but it's been a few more weeks now. The NFL is finally in the rear view, and as we put them under a little bit tighter analysis, seems like everything's kind of in check. They look like the best team in the NBA right now. We're going to listen to Kendrick Perkins right now. He was on with Jay Williams. Let's hear a little bit of sound from Kendrick.
Giannis said something that the Jazz are the best team in the West.
Right.
I agree with them right now. Do you?
Yes. They are the best team in the league. When you look at this Utah Jazz team, they're not lacking at anything. They're top 5 defensively in every category. They're top 5 offensively in every category. And when you look at it, they have a young superstar, Donovan Mitchell. I don't care what anyone says. This guy's a superstar. And we watched it last year in the bubble. But the thing that impressed me the most about Donovan Mitchell this season is his playmaking ability and him being able to make guys around him better.
In full transparency there, Frankie, we had to play the clip because I like the way that Kendrick says bubble.
And who could blame you?
But anyway, the Jazz, as you heard him say, they're top 5 in defense, top 5 in offense. I don't like their personnel, but when you look at them, is there anything to say on the contrary that they're the best team in the NBA?
If they go 500 the rest of the way, there's 44 games left in the season. If they go 500, they'll win the equivalent of a 50-game season for an 82-game season. 52 wins, rather. So, I mean, I think they're not just on fire. They're head and shoulders the best team in the NBA right now. They're the most complete team in the NBA, and we all know how I feel about Donovan Mitchell. And if you don't, I'm about to tell you real quick. He's one of the few NBA players in history that gets better in the playoffs. He's been good since he was 20 years old in the league. Donovan Mitchell's an unbelievable basketball player. Not only is this Jazz team for real, they're going to make it out of the West.
They're going to make it out of the West?
They're going to make it out of the West.
I don't think you believe that.
Listen to me. The benchmark of a championship team the last 10 years or so has been 55-plus wins. So if they get to 50 wins out of 72, and they're number 1 in offense and number 1 in defense, and they're led by a young budding superstar, it's happening. I feel the same way about this team this year that I did about the Nuggets last year.
Okay, so they're going to choke in the playoffs.
No. Because
Not make it out of the West.
No. Anthony Davis may or may not be
They're going to make
healthy.
it out over the Lakers?
Listen, it's a war of attrition right now. The shortened season, the shortened layoff has been hard for everybody, especially teams that went deep last year. The Nuggets may not even make the playoffs right now. If the playoffs started today, the Nuggets wouldn't be in there. And the Lakers would be playing the Clippers. So Utah wouldn't have to play one of the LA teams. They get to knock each other out first.
All right, fair enough. But can Jordan Clarkson be your second best offensive weapon?
He's not. Joe Ingles is your second best offensive weapon. You laugh at him, but Joe Ingles has been a good NBA player every year he's been in the league. He's only gotten better. And Jordan Clarkson, you cannot rely on him to score 40 points. But if your question is, can he do this? The answer is yes. Jordan Clarkson is an NBA player who's a walking bucket. Now, the argument is he's going to have games where he doesn't shoot so well, where he's, 5 of 15. But he's a bench player. His one job is to come in and have the green light.
Yeah, I mean, I like Josh Dodd because he's sticking up already and saying that the Jazz are not going to make it out of the West. I just feel like that's – look, they're having a great regular season. They're a great regular season team this year. But, I mean, how many times have we seen teams that have just rolled through like the Bucks over the past couple of years? You think the Jazz can really duke it out with some – I don't even think they could go up against a team like Portland and ultimately win that. They don't have the star power to knock a team off like that. They're playing in sync, but –
I'm not going to address Portland. But listen, what I will tell you, they have one of the few players in the NBA that can actually give Anthony Davis fits. I mean, Rudy Gobert is an antiquated, archaic big man, but for a team who plays like the Jazz do, he's perfect and he's a weapon. There's a reason they're the number one defense in the league. They have great wing defenders, they have great defensive guards, and they have the one defensive big man who can actually move.
Yeah, I mean, I like Gobert, but I mean, how much can you really depend on a guy that can't do much for you offensively? Like, he's never going to be able to carry the load for you offensively in one of these games.
And I
you
never
don't need
him
him to when Jordan Clarkson is the guy that you've got to rely on for 40 points.
Jordan Clarkson is they didn't need 40 points. If Jordan Clarkson had 20, they still would have won. And that's the point. That's the whole point, is that this team, any one player can have a bad night, and it really doesn't even affect their chances to win. You need 2, 3, 4 guys to have an off night. When you're that complete a team, it's going to be tough for anybody to beat you 4 games out of 7.
All right. Well, you're honestly surprising me a little bit out of the gate here, just with how bullish you are on the Jazz.
Listen,
I mean, I feel like they're looking good right now, but I don't think they're going to be good in the playoffs. I don't think they're going to actually make it out of the West. If you had to put your bottom dollar, Frankie, on the Utah Jazz, that's where you'd be putting your money right now in terms of teams getting out of the West?
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers without AD, I have no faith in. The Clippers, we
will let you amend this take right now. You can back up.
Nope, we'll go down the standings right now. We'll go down the standings. Both LA teams.
I know what the standings say.
Okay.
I'm just saying what's going to happen in crunch time. When you have to have it, are the Jazz going to be the team that stands up?
They have Mitchell. The one thing that these Giannis teams have or don't have is that elite three-point shooter. Chris Middleton can't do it when it's important.
Donovan Mitchell is not an elite three-point shooter.
No, but he's
a good three-point shooter.
He's a good three-point shooter and an elite scorer. And again, when it's nut-cutting time, he's not a guy that runs away from it. He's been in the playoffs 2 years in his career, and they've been quite literally 2 of the most impressive playoffs that we've seen from an under 25 player. I mean, I just feel if you get him in a situation where it's a close game, I have so much. Let me put it to you like this: I have more confidence in the Jazz closing games than any other team in the NBA.
Well, it's funny that you do because they haven't been in that position for the past couple of years. I mean, how can you really be that determined? I mean, you're just going to go off this regular season on what they're doing so far.
No.
Shortened season. You've already said it yourself. Some of the teams that have come out of the bubble, they're not playing as well as we would expect them. Obviously, the Lakers aren't hitting on all cylinders right now. You're really going to you're going to lay in bed with the Utah Jazz.
Here's my thing. The only thing I'm worried about with the Jazz, they are 6th in the league in three-point percentage. They are not the 6th best three-point shooting team in the league. They're probably somewhere around 12th. And when that number comes back, I don't think they'll win at the same rate. But again, you got to beat this team 4 out of 7 games. I really have and again, they can close games. And you said that's only 1 year. No. For about 4 years, they've been getting better and better and better. They've been adding pieces, and they know what their identity is now. That's what happens when you have primarily the same roster and you get to build it. It doesn't happen in professional sports nowadays, but it has with this team, and it's paying off. And unlike those Hawks teams that won 60 games, unlike these past Giannis Bucks teams, this is a complete team. It's not just a fraudulent, they're going to win 65 games and get swept. This is not what the Utah Jazz is.
So the Utah Jazz are going to come out of the West this year.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, again, we'll allow you to amend this.
You don't have
to. You don't have to take this. You can come back. You can back up right now. You don't have to do this just for the sake of the podcast.
I didn't get my wish during the NFL season. I'm going to get Tatum versus Mitchell.
Well, if anybody wants to call in and correct Frankie, we've got the phones open, 617-702-2542. Appreciate everybody for tuning in with us tonight. We're going to flip the page a little bit, and because I feel like Frank's got to be under the influence of something. Let's talk to him about Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is on the trade block. We heard Mr. Triple Single, Draymond Green talking about the fact that the NBA is crap because they're holding him out and everything. But let's forget about that. I don't even really want to talk about that. He's on the trade block. Who do you think? We've heard about Toronto probably going to try to make a move for him. Who is another team that you think could be a realistic favorite and a team that should try to make a move for Andre Drummond?
Yeah, I don't know about favorite. I mean, he's overpaid and his play style doesn't really fit the NBA, but he's good at certain things. He's a decent defender. He's an unbelievable rebounder. The Nets need him. Toronto definitely could use him. I mean, I was thinking about this all day, and realistically, the team he's on would be fine. Like, you know what team needs him? The Cleveland Cavaliers. I felt this way when Cam Newton was getting traded, when I thought he had something left in the tank. And they were like, oh, where should he go? The Panthers. The Panthers are a team that needs a quarterback. I feel this way. The Cavaliers need him. They have two young guards. They have Kevin. Like, you know what they need? A defensive big man. And they have Jared Allen. I understand that's essentially what made Drummond expendable. I'd still keep him. I mean, that team's not going anywhere with or without him, but they're going to be better with him. They don't have a lot of young guys rushing to fill that spot.
All right. So aside from staying status quo with the Cavs, is there any team out there that's maybe a contender that should be making a move? There's a team that I'm thinking of.
The Nets.
What about the Charlotte Hornets? You know, they're a team that's in the fifth spot. They're a team that over the past 30 days, they've been playing a lot better, making a lot of movement in the Eastern Conference. They're gaining ground on the Celtics, who are just free-falling right now. You know, if they could put some of the chips in and make a move for somebody like Andre Drummond, they don't really have a center. That was the team that kind of came to mind. I don't think they're going to make a move like that, but, I mean, they'd be better off if they were to get a center.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love Charlotte. I really do. They're ahead of schedule. And whenever a team's ahead of schedule, I'm weary of selling off pieces to try to go for it now. And I don't know that Drummond puts them over the hump. I do think, on the court, chemistry-wise, LaMelo Ball is a perfect point guard to fit with an Andre Drummond. I think you're going to get the most offensive production that you can get from Andre with a point guard like LaMelo.
So about 13 points a game or so?
About 60. Well, hey, if he can get 3 offensive rebounds and get 6 points that way, he's halfway there.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like that's one of the biggest stories this week is where is Andre Drummond going to go? But I've also seen things like NBA scouts. There's an NBA scout who came out, said that Andre Drummond is one of the guys who can get you 30 points, 20 rebounds, and have zero impact on the game. You said he's good in a couple areas. What's your ultimate take on a guy like Andre Drummond, who's played for Detroit, who's played for Cleveland? Is it more of a factor that these teams weren't good because he was there, or were these teams, is it just that he hasn't played with a good team yet? Should these teams that he's been on have been good with him? I feel like he's been on 2 crap teams.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, look, Detroit hasn't
really had a chance to prove that he could be a winner.
He was a winner in Kentucky, kind of.
UConn.
Connecticut, sorry.
One of the last good guys to come from UConn, really, though. I mean, think about it. It's been a while.
Well, hey, we have stars coming out of colleges they've never come out of before. The Wichita States of the world. Like, it's different. There's just so much talent in every sport that it's so fun to watch. And again, it leads to things. And Andre Drummond, I think the biggest problem, the biggest takeaway from him, what's my overall overriding thesis on him? The game passed him by. Like, if he was drafted 10 years before him, if he was born 10 years before, he'd be fine. Like, he's a above average old school center. The game just doesn't fit him today. But he can get you 20 rebounds a night. I have no doubt about that. If you leave him on the court 30 minutes a night, he'll get 30 rebounds a night.
Yeah, he definitely will. I mean, that's one thing that I think the past 4 years he's led the league in rebounds. I mean, it feels like nobody's going to touch him in terms of being able to lead the league in rebounds. It feels like every year he's like ahead by at least like a rebound or two. So he's definitely really good at that. I do want to see him have a bigger offensive impact on the game, just for as big as he is, as athletic as he is as well. I mean, did you see? It was probably a few weeks ago. He tried to take some guy off the dribble. I think it was the Knicks game, and just completely threw that ball up in the air.
Mm-hmm. A few plays later, he threw it to a ref, and the ball went out of bounds. He is not the type of player to instigate the offense. This is not his role. Whenever I see him outside of 18 feet dribbling, shame. Pass it and repost. There's nothing you can do. Grant Williams had an embarrassing moment the other night. Somebody took away the baseline, and he just fell over. Like, some guys just... Look, if your first move is stopped and you don't got moves, pass it. There are guys with moves. You are not one of them.
So we have Josh Dodd chiming in saying that it's an optics thing with Drummond. He has no passion despite the obvious effort that it takes to get 20 rebounds. So it seems to be kind of echoing what I was saying about that scout. Any other teams that you think he might be worth, before we flip the page, is there anybody else, and where do you think he ultimately ends up?
Where do I think he's actually going to go? I want to steal Charlotte because you said that, and I think on the court it works. I'm not sure how many more wins he brings them, but I know on the court it would work between him and the point guard. I want to see as many of these players going to the Nets, the Clippers, and the Lakers. I like when the strong get stronger. I'm sorry. So I'm going to definitively say he'll end up on the Clippers.
Nick Smith is crying laughing, but gives us no explanation. We'll wait to see what he says there. But let's flip the page and talk about the Boston Celtics. This isn't just a thing because we have a podcast in Boston. It's also a thing where this has picked up nationwide steam. We actually have a clip from Stephen A. Smith, who went in on a guy that often doesn't get a whole lot of grief around here, but Danny Ainge. Stephen A. Smith doing a little damage on Danny Ainge. Let's let that one play.
However, is that I'm just looking at them right now, and before I think about Brad Stevens, I think about Danny Ainge, and I think about Danny Ainge, who was building a roster, but has never gone for it. He's built the roster through the draft. You've got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. You acquired Kemba Walker. We get all of that. One could have argued they could have made a run for Anthony Davis. They refused to do so. Just looking at them right now, it seems like their window of opportunity has passed because they had an opportunity to go for it and didn't do it. Now, they're a relatively young squad. I mean, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are both young. And so because of that, you know what? Clearly, they're not finished, and I guess that's the reason you can look at Brad Stevens because they've got enough quality players to be better than what they are. But I still look at Danny Ainge because Danny Ainge, to me, he was hesitant to be that guy that just went for it until he acquired KG and Ray Allen to join Paul Pierce because he was.
So if he was in the state of Massachusetts, I feel like Stephen A. Smith would be arrested for those comments because of all the, you just get everybody around here standing up for Danny Ainge. It seems like the work that he did in 2008 is just going to get people to fall in line with him for, I don't know how many years that's going to be able to give him of grace. But Stephen A. Smith saying a few things that I definitely agree with. I feel like Ainge has never done a trade where he's not the clear winner. He never, over the past 5 years, he hasn't done any trade deadline deals. Is Danny Ainge getting a little bit too much leash here? Should he have made some of these moves? Do you agree with anything that Stephen A. Smith said there?
Oh, you already know. I mean, I've been on this show hammering him. And Danny Ainge I've always said this. Because I'm bashing you doesn't mean you're bad. Like, he's a good GM. He's a top 10 GM. But he's missed so many chances. The extra protections on picks just for those trades. The stockpiling of young players just to play in Maine. I mean, there's a lot to like with Danny Ainge, but I go back to the Kyrie deal. Because that's where the beginning of the crack started to show because you didn't make a clear decision. You got the guy on a relatively good trade. I mean, I think to this day, even though Kyrie's not here, we won that trade. But then you refuse to acquiesce to the superstar or get rid of Kyrie. Like, he didn't make a clear decision. We had so much talent. He stockpiled it. It didn't get along, and it manifested on the court. Then he let the wrong guys go. I mean, I think he's constantly trying to think 2 steps ahead, but sometimes he overthinks it. Like, sometimes you should just package those players and get somebody. Like, how many first-round picks are you going to stick in Maine?
Yeah, and how many years are you going to have potential guys that you're going to be taking onto this? It's like at some point you just got to stick it and pick it. We have Nick Smith chiming in saying, preach Stephen A. Josh Dodd saying that it's crap. There's plenty of talent on this team, and they can't beat the Wizards. Brad has to take some of the blame. I just feel like Stephen A. Smith is right in terms of saying that you've got to address some of the things that Ainge has done before you can talk about a coach and getting him to address some of the things. I don't think that Brad is the best guy with egos. I feel like he's definitely a player's coach and is never going to say anything that upsets. I can't remember the last time he said something negative about a player. It's like even when Kemba was missing all those shots that he has, can't throw a grape in the ocean. It's like, well, he's happy that he's out there and healthy. And sure, we're all happy about that. But, I mean, Brad Stevens is the coach that it seems like he hasn't made guys like Irving work. It seems like he hasn't made guys like Hayward work. Now, Hayward had a lot of injuries as well, but who do you think has to get their act straight first? Is this more of an Ainge problem? Is this more of a Brad Stevens problem? Because it also seems like, before you go, seems like this team is not buying into what Brad Stevens is
And that's
saying
what I
as
was
far
going to say, because I don't think Brad Stevens is the problem, but I think the players have checked out, and once NBA players stop listening to you, you're not getting them back. This is not an NFL locker room. It's not an NHL team. Once they tune the coach out, he's got to go somewhere else. And Brad Stevens will go somewhere else and be a great coach. But if we keep him, we're going to end up keeping him and losing Tatum, because it's beginning to feel like that's the odds here. And I said it before the season started. I don't know that Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown can play on the same team long term.
I feel like, though, this team, this ownership, it seems like they want to keep Brad Stevens more than they want to choose players, right? Like, that's one of the
Definitively.
How many times have you seen a player over the past few years that said, "I really want to go play for this"? Does LeBron talk about what coach he wants to go play for? Does Anthony Davis talk about the coach that he wants to play for? Any of these guys, they'll make the coach work. But I feel like this town, they're so concerned about having the right coach rather than having the right mix of players. And that just seems so backwards to me.
Not only is it backwards, I mean, and first of all, I love Wick, so I won't say nothing bad about him. But Danny Ainge, sorry. It's abundantly clear that not only does he want positionless basketball, not only does he want as many first-round picks as possible, Brad Stevens is Teflon. So not only does Brad Stevens not call out his players, but Danny Ainge will never call out Brad Stevens. We're never going to get full disclosure here, like, ever. And again, I just think that this locker room is exceptionally fractured. I still think we're going to end up winning like 45 games. I just think that there's enough talent on the team. But it's not complementary talent per se. And I think when you look at when we had IT and the full complement of assets and players and what we have right now, it's not a net positive.
Yeah, I got to tell you one thing that I'm sick of, too, is seeing this stat that without Marcus Smart, the Celtics are like 3-6. It's like they could have had anybody, and they'd still be 3-6. It's like they just chose the right time to lose. It's like you were saying that Jaylen Brown probably can't play with Marcus Smart. I completely agree. It seems like last year, Marcus Smart in the playoffs was yelling. There was a few games in the playoffs where he was yelling at guys like Jaylen Brown. It's like, I'm not going to listen to someone that averages 10 points a game.
Shut up.
To tell me how to do my job. I'm not going to look at the worst guy at my work atmosphere. The guy who, is jumping all out of place, doesn't do anything skillfully, and be like, that's the guy I need to listen to. It's like, it'd be one thing if Tatum were to take that type of role, but like, who's going to listen to Marcus Smart?
But isn't that the bigger problem? That Tatum isn't that guy, and that the only two guys on the roster, seemingly, that can set a tone are Brown and Smart, and those two guys aren't on the same page. So the two guys you have on your roster that can take that role as a leader don't get along.
Yeah, and I just feel like Smart has done plenty of things in the past where I just feel like he is a tough guy to follow, like whether it be punching walls and breaking his hand when he missed time for that, or I feel like Jaylen Brown is the guy that you want to follow more than Marcus Smart. And a guy that's averaging 25, 26 points a game, who's still 24 years old. I mean, Marcus Smart has never gotten better at shooting, as much as we want to play his defense, you could probably make an argument that Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown is, almost as valuable defensively. Like, Marcus Smart is the best defensive player on this team, but it's not by like a long shot, I would say.
Also, in limited play this year, his defense has taken a step back. He's getting a little bit older. Let's not eye test. He's not quite the same defensive player. Also, he's 6'3", and how many years are you going to let him guard the Durants of the world and the Embiids of the world? Like, it's cool, and it's a novelty, and he's going to try really hard. But how long is that going to work? And here's something I want to say as a small aside. I'm worried that after because Tatum seems to be in love with Kyrie Irving, and he loved Kobe, and all these things are great. They're great players. But I'm worried about, okay, so Kyrie left, didn't want to stay here. Everybody else that you've drafted, you've since traded, or still plays for Maine. Is Jason Tatum going to want to re-sign here? And if he goes, what was the point? Because at one point, facts not opinion, you could have had Jason Tatum, Kyrie Irving, and either KD or AD. Had you traded all your assets and Jaylen Brown and everything else. You would have had those three players. Would they have stayed here? We don't know. But to pass that up, assuming that you can sign these two young guys long term, if just one of them walks, epic fail.
Yeah, I totally agree with that too. I know we don't want to agree too much on here. We risk a whole lot by doing that. But it'd be like, Tatum following the lead of Kyrie Irving. How good can I be if I'm following, your think tank? But, I just do think sometimes it's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to keep these guys. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith, and sometimes you have to be able to surround them with the right personnel to be able to keep them there. And, if you make a leap and you get a guy like AD, yeah, it's a risk, but get another guy that keeps. If you have Kyrie Irving playing with him, I mean, he looks like a jackwagon if he leaves.
Let me ask you. If we had done the 1 year thing Toronto did, and Jaylen Brown's gone, and so is Kawhi,
would anybody be upset?
But we won a ring. Is anybody in Boston upset that we made that trade?
I'm not upset.
I just, and again, I like Jaylen Brown. I'm glad we kept him. Hindsight 2020, all that. But if one of these guys doesn't re-sign with you, and you banked losing all of those assets on these two guys being stalwarts of your franchise, you better start trying to pay them now.
Yeah, and I feel like right now it's just the whole hurry up and wait thing. It's like we are waiting for these two guys to blossom into superstars. They're making good leaps year after year, but we just keep waiting for them to be guys that can carry a franchise.
Also, Brown's pretty close to it. I mean,
how much more can he develop?
Thank you.
He came into the league. You thought he had a good body for a pro. He's probably gone way above anybody's expectations of what he could turn. He's certainly gone way above mine, and I mean, kudos to him. But totally agree with you.
He's done the Jimmy Butler. Like at this point, he's probably not going to get any better.
He's probably not a 30-point-a-game scorer. I mean, this is probably the top that he's going to get out of his potential.
Offensively.
So, yeah, I mean, we have a couple people chiming in, obviously saying that the Celtics need a little bit more, that Smart shot is a little bit streaky, that people are jumping off the Stevens bandwagon. Josh Dodd says jokingly that Aaron Nesmith is a future star. That's one of the most concerning things to me that happened in the game the other night. Aaron Nesmith was a DNP for 5 straight games.
And
then they play him for 29 minutes. What does that say? You are just scratching at things to try to make things work. It's like, we don't know. I mean, literally, we're not going to play. This guy's not even worth playing for 5 games. Then we're going to play him for 29 minutes. It's like, you don't even have an idea on what you're trying to figure out if that's the type of things that you're employing at this point. So that goes a long way to say, what do the Celtics need to address first here?
They need somebody to surprise. They need somebody to protect the rim, and rebound. I mean, but really, it's the rim protection because Tristan Thompson hasn't been a defensive player this year at all. Might as well be playing 4-on-5, but he's boarding. Cool. Can we get just dangle Taco Fall out there for like Boban? Like at this point, wouldn't you take a guy who can play 8 minutes and nobody can get a layup during those 8 minutes?
See if we can get Andrew Bogut for Taco.
Andrew Bogut at this point he must have no knees left. I loved Andrew Bogut. He's done though. He's very done.
Here's a guy that Golden State could play for the first 4 minutes to stifle a couple shots, and it was like, all right, let's go to the death lineup.
The best offense in the league. Yeah, but I still want a center. I still want a guy to block shots for certain lineups and situations.
Yeah, you know who that guy was? Miles Turner. And
yes,
we said, you know what? We don't want to take Miles Turner for free. We don't want to take Miles Turner for Gordon Hayward. Miles Turner is averaging 3.7 blocks a game. He's 24 years young. He's having a career year. It would have been so easy to get him for nothing. Now you're looking at he's going to be coming off a career year. The Pacers probably aren't going to let him go without a fight. You could have had that guy easily, and you could have also brought in a guy like Thompson too. And it just feels so apparent that if you had to address one of these options for the Celtics right now, are you addressing the point guard position or the big man?
Big man.
Same.
They have 47 guards on this team. Can I get one shot blocker, please?
Yeah, I agree. Let's also do this. Let's take a look at a couple years ago, I wanted them to get Kemba. And I think looking back, most of us wanted them to get Kemba. He was a leader. He was averaging 25 points a game. Seemed like a guy who could hit his own shot, play well within this offense, probably defer to a couple of young studs. But you look at it now with the injuries piling up, and you look at it with Terry Rozier's play out in Charlotte. Terry Rozier averaging almost 21 points a night, shooting well over 40% from 3, shooting a really high clip from 2-point. If you had to go back, would you rather have Kemba Walker for 4 years, 140, or would you rather have Terry Rozier for 3 years, 56?
Terry, but because things don't necessarily happen in a vacuum, I'd like for context's sake just to say he wouldn't be doing what he's doing in Charlotte here. And the same problem
What would he be doing here?
The same problem we have with Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart we had with Terry Rozier. That locker room was fractured then. And again, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know who's mad at who. I don't know.
Because all I heard this offseason was we got rid of a guy like Hayward. That's going to open up so much for Jaylen, for Tatum.
It has.
But doesn't it feel like this team, their talent got awfully short, awfully quick? I mean, it doesn't feel like they couldn't afford to have a player of that caliber on plays. Yeah, I mean, the Chris Paul factor is real, right? Like, he goes to
Every team and wins.
He goes to, we've got one ringing through right now. We'll take it. Hi, you're live with Open Season. Who do we got?
Billy A., Aaron Davis.
Oh, my man. How you doing tonight?
How's it going, Billy?
Hey, it's going great, dude. It was awesome to catch up with you today.
Yeah, man.
It's a shame we couldn't talk about the NBA at all today, you know?
Oh, really?
No, we talked about about like 45 minutes about the NBA earlier. You're probably primed and ready to go.
I am. But just let me know, where'd you guys leave off? What was the most outrageous thing you heard on today's show about the NBA? Good question, Aaron. Where'd you go to ask the question to it? There you go.
Great question. What is the most outrageous thing we heard tonight so far?
I don't know. I mean, I've done most of the talking, so there hasn't been a whole lot of outrageous things said.
It was probably when Frank said that. Yeah, I'll tell you what the most outrageous thing was Frank saying that the Jazz are going to come out of the West. I think that's the most ridiculous thing that's been said.
What West? The West of what? There must be like a G League Utah team he's talking about or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah?
But the NBA Utah Jazz team, doubtful.
Hey, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the Nets. We actually hadn't gotten to them yet. I mean, they put up an incredible night last night. 27 threes, sans Kevin Durant. Are they the favorite right now for the title?
They, in my head, they are the favorite out of the East for the title. That depends on the health of one said Anthony Davis and LeBron James. But I would still, again, it's still kind of early, Billy. Don't quote me, but I still would give Brooklyn an edge right now to get the W for the chip, only because I have yet to see, in my head, I can't figure out how, with the last 4 minutes in the fourth quarter, the ball's in Kevin Durant's hands. Who's stopping that man? And when he passes it, who's stopping that man? Harden or Kyrie. That's just defensively, I don't see how a team can really match up with it, honestly.
I'm looking at Frank, and it looks like he wants to answer you. I don't know.
Please do, Frank.
Let's start off.
Please.
So the first 5 teams in the West would smack whoever comes out of the East this year. All right, second. Look,
are you from the West Coast?
Am I from the West? No, but look, the Nets are, since Harden got there, they are allowing 122 points a game. Nobody has to stop them. They're going to go up against an actually good team who's just not going to stop scoring because they can't stop them. The Nets can't stop bad teams. The Nets can't stop bad teams. The Nets have lost to the Pistons in the last 2 weeks. What do you mean? Bad teams can beat them?
Yes. That's another question I have to ask. Have you played a game of basketball, like a legit competitive game of basketball against men? Yes or no?
Yes.
You have? Okay. That's
I've never seen it, but he says that he has.
I'll play you one-on-one for your life savings, dog.
Who?
You.
Really?
Oh, baby. No, that was Frankie.
Oh, man. Billy, you better tell him some stories. You better know who he's talking to. The last person who did that lost a commission check and he shaved his head bald. I don't think that wouldn't be a wise decision. Trust me. But, like I said, looking at basketball-wise, X's and O's, as Kyrie, Harden, and Kevin Durant are playing at a top-notch level, how do you stop that? James Harden is averaging a 12 to 15 assists a game. All they're lacking, those L's that they took were all, in my opinion, there's a lack of chemistry, lack of getting the system down. We're talking playoff NBA basketball. It's a wrap. What you want? Come on.
You've never seen an NBA team win an NBA championship with a bottom 15 defense. You know why you've never seen it? Because it hasn't happened since the 60s. So I feel very confident that due to X's and O's, given historical pretense, they will not be there.
Okay. Name the team that's going to stop.
They'll
Kevin
stop
Durant.
themselves. They can't guard anybody.
He is asking you to name a team. He is asking you
I
to
said
name
they
a
got
team.
beat by the
asking you to
Pistons.
name a team.
I'm telling you, they'll get beat by any team with balls. They'll get beat by Boston in a series.
Boston in a
They could
series?
get upset by Toronto in a series. They have no nuts. You are assigning a winning mentality to a team that does not have it.
You know this is tape.
My bad.
Hold on.
My bad. Kevin Durant's only an MVP, 2-time champ. My bad. Kyrie Irving is a champ. That's what
Kyrie Irving has made every team
Kyrie
he's ever gone to worse that didn't have LeBron on it. KD's the one winner on that team.
Kyrie's never played with 2 MVPs before.
Okay, so we're gonna find out.
Facts. Seriously, I'm a fan of the game. Seriously, if it happened in the 60s, it can happen again. That's not bottom 15 defense. Yes, that's not gonna stay there. We're professional. That's not gonna stay at the bottom. Come on.
They're
That's not
consistently
gonna
giving
happen.
up 120
Let me facilitate. Frank, you are seriously going to say
Yes.
that the Nets would lose to the Celtics in a series right now?
Yes.
How are you going to sit here and say that? It may
Because
be one thing to lose to these Western Conference teams you're bringing up. I will maybe grant you that. How are the Boston Celtics going to beat the Nets in a series?
I've said this because the downfall of the Nets are going to be between the ears. They have yet to face,
And it won't be with the Celtics? They have worse personnel too.
It doesn't matter. Some team's going to be up with 4 minutes left, and you said Katie's going to have the ball and nobody can stop him. I agree with you, except Harden's going to have the ball, and is he going to do in friggin' Brooklyn what he did in Houston? Because that's not going to win either.
Which is what?
Which is bow out when he's at home up against a 63-win team, and he bows out.
All right. But guess what? The pressure's not on James Harden.
The pressure's on all of them. They all have to subjugate their ego. The pressure's on all of them.
Okay. And I believe that that's going to happen. We've
But it's a
already
belief.
seen it happen.
No, you haven't.
Oh my God! You haven't seen James Harden completely humble himself and give you buckets and assists smart decision making on the floor.
He has,
professional
Frank.
basketball player.
At least say that.
Well, I told you that before the show. But but I said the same thing that I just said. But at some point, when they're down in the playoffs, we'll find out who the real version of these guys are. The only person we know who KD is. We do not know who Kyrie is. Because every team he's been on without LeBron
My
on it
bad.
has been
Again,
worse.
I'm not the biggest Kyrie fan, but Kyrie, my bad, hit the biggest. He got LeBron the chip.
Except
and
here's why do people forget that LeBron scored the last 4 points of that game? He hit that 3
Because they were all free throws, weren't they?
Yes, but Kyrie didn't. But hold on, what's more, 4 or 3 points?
Sit tight. I'll tell you why folks forget to mention he dropped 4 points in the last 4 points of the game, because he didn't hit the biggest shot. Kyrie did.
Okay, but if he misses those free throws, then they become the biggest shot. Ask Shaq about missed free throws in the playoffs.
Frank, I'm giving this one. This one is at least going to Aaron. Come on, that shot. Kyrie's shot was bigger than.
Sure, but his bigger point is that the Nets are proving that they're winners and subjugating their egos. That shit ain't happened yet. Not in the regular season. Not when they're giving up 120 points. Not when they're losing to Cleveland and Detroit.
I'll give you that. Who's going to stop them? You still haven't given me the team that's constructed with the talent.
Because I think the answer is the Nets. Because I think the answer is the Nets, and I have said that. I think they're going to beat themselves.
That is not a basketball answer. You are now saying that these guys. No, I'm saying what team is going to beat them?
The first 5 seeds in the West. If you want an Eastern Conference team, Philly, Milwaukee, Boston, all of them. And for the record, again, if they're down to Toronto, a team that actually has winning experience, they're going to lose because they're going to bow out. Just like the Clippers did in the bubble last year. Losing teams, they lose.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's move on.
Who are you? Go ahead.
No. All I was going to say is it seems like Frank's not going to back down from that. Honestly, I'm taking your side, Aaron. Like, I don't think it's a shoo-in that I feel like I got to hop in here and be like, I feel like I'm like Oprah right now or something. Like, it's like, it's just obviously the Nets. Nobody knows if they're proven yet, but they're going to beat the teams that you named in the Eastern Conference, Frank. I mean,
they're going to beat.
Yes, they are.
I'll put money on Philly or Milwaukee.
Fan. You know what? I'll buy you a case. I'll buy you a case of Heineken or Corona, whatever your beer of choice is. Right? If the Celtics beat Brooklyn Nets in a 7-game series, dealing with a 7-foot monster,
If the
dealing with a
Celtics-
guy who has
We'll continue.
I mean, as constructed, they're not. That's not going to happen. Kimber Walker's playing with he's playing on a leg and a half. Come on,
If that.
come on. And he can't even. He's not. Is he going to guard Kyrie going to the goal? No. Is he going to guard James Harden going to the goal? No. Is he going to guard? No, he's not going to guard KD. No, it's not. Come on.
But those players you mentioned aren't going to guard anybody on the Celtics. Those same players aren't going to guard anybody on any other team either. That's why Colin Sexton can go for 42.
All right, break it up, you two. Break it up. All right.
Love Aaron.
No. This is honestly great
love
stuff.
that. He's the guy.
So, Aaron, what else did you want to talk about tonight? We'll give you a couple more. What else did you want to talk about aside from, we've kind of talked about, obviously we've talked about the Celtics and their struggles. We've talked about how the Jazz look pretty good so far. What we haven't really talked about so far yet is Anthony Davis going to be out for the next few weeks. What do you see for
8 weeks?
What do you see in the future for the Los Angeles Lakers? Is this a death blow for them? Do they survive this?
I think they can survive it, yes, but it's gonna come back to haunt them. 2 months without AD on the floor, so it's really, in my head, it's really like 2.5 months, because it's going to take them about 2-3 weeks to get back in the game shape after being out for 2 months. LeBron's going to be loaded up. It's going to be, hey, LeBron, it's all on your shoulders yet again. Show us what you can do. I mean, what other viable option as a legit scorer can go out there, create their own shot, make smart basketball decisions, and have an impact on the game? I can't name one. If you tell me Kyle Kuzma, Mr. West Coast, I promise you, I would find you and give you a big hug and say something is wrong. We need to admit you somewhere,
Right.
to some type of facility.
So I was going to say Kuzma too. You said make smart basketball decisions. Kyle Kuzma can have an impact. Absolutely can get his own shot, and has been playing the best defense and getting the most rebounds of his career. He's actually playing the best basketball I've ever seen him play, but he's not a great playmaker. He's not a high basketball IQ guy.
The problem for the Lakers is it's those two and it's everybody else. It's just there is way too far of a gap. At least in this NBA, it's like you have to have 3 stars nowadays to be. And the reason why the Lakers win is because they have 2 of the top 5 guys in the league. So that's obviously a little bit different. But they definitely have to have somebody cushion that blow. I am worried about LeBron taking all that usage on.
He's going to take usage like crazy. Yep.
I mean, he's going to be playing 40 minutes.
45 minutes. Yeah. Yep.
He's going to be playing AI minutes over the next however many nights, and it's seeming like 3 weeks is like on the low end of this.
If I'm the Lakers, he's not playing more than 35 minutes. Period.
Well, you're not the Lakers.
I know.
They've been playing him over that while Anthony Davis has been healthy.
But
so I mean, how much is he
that's the thing. AD hasn't been healthy, but now they know definitively he's out indefinitely. So now they actually have a timetable and they can say, okay, well, we can't just rely on LeBron. If they do, there's no way it doesn't come back to haunt them. There's just his points per game. He went from 32 minutes a game to 34 minutes a game, and he did that in about 6 games because there was 2 overtime games and 2 40-minute games. He can't keep doing that. To raise it 2 full minutes in under 10 games is astronomical. And if that continues in that direction, because now we don't have AD for longer, you're going to hurt your team.
Correct. And I hope he doesn't come back and try to come back too soon and really injure himself. And then LeBron's legacy is he ain't getting no more chips. It's a wrap. That's curtains.
Yeah, they've really got to protect him. They've got to protect that investment. I mean, they're definitely going to err on the side of caution. I mean, they're totally erring on the side of caution with this Anthony Davis injury. I mean, if you're the Lakers, you look at it, you're like, we can't lose. The only thing that can stop us is if we lose LeBron or if we lose AD. And this is what's happening to them right now.
Right.
Aaron, we appreciate you a ton, man, for calling in tonight. It's been awesome going back and forth with you. I know
of course,
our collective blood pressure has been raised.
Nah, it's all love.
No, not yet. That's love. This is just basketball. Get the blood going. Is it still too late now to talk about Brady and how he just told Belichick this is how you get a ring?
We are going to say that this is too late. We're just going to try to keep this one to basketball. We appreciate you a ton calling in.
All right.
Maybe next week
Love
we can
you
find
guys.
a time and a place for that one-on-one game.
Ha!
Let's do that.
I would.
I mean, the snow is melting, Frankie. We can get a nice little outdoor game.
We'll get some
social
stakes on it.
distance.
I'll do
all
something
the
nice
things
for you, and if I win, when I win, you can come on my show with a dunce cap or something. We'll do something playful. All right.
Oh my! Did you play high school?
Yeah. We'll play. We'll play. We'll have fun.
You two can glory days it next week.
Yeah.
Thanks
All
a ton
right,
for
all
calling
right,
in
all
tonight,
right,
Aaron.
all right. Thanks, Billy. All right, man. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Peace.
All right, so that's our good friend Aaron Davis. We open up the lines again at 617-702-2542. If we had gone into Brady right there, that would have just been...
It would have been the rest of the show, which is why we couldn't do it. We should get back to the Suns because the Chris Paul effect is, I think, where we left off, and it's real. And it's real. And I just don't... And again, it's
If I
weird.
told you that there was going to be a Chris Paul effect a few years ago when he was on the Clippers, could you ever even believe that
Yes.
that was going to be something
Yes.
that was possible?
Do you remember where I wanted him to go before he went to the Suns? Milwaukee.
Okay.
He was the missing piece for Milwaukee. They didn't even get him.
You mean to tell me it wasn't J. Rue Holiday?
I love Drew Holiday. I love Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is great. He's not going to put anybody over the hump, though. And for the record, Chris Paul may not be either, but boy, do wins seem to follow him wherever he goes.
Boy, do you get a little bit more dog in your team, too, when you get a guy like Chris Paul.
Oh, yeah.
You get a guy that you can go to war with.
For better or worse, he might find you.
Hey, he's gonna knock somebody in the balls, but I mean, you just got to start rooting for that type of stuff if you're on Chris Paul's team. I just feel like a few years ago when they were on those Clippers teams that couldn't get the job done, like the last thing I would have expected is for teams to be rallying around a guy like Chris Paul.
But he had game-winning shots against the Spurs and Houston. That team failed Chris Paul. Chris Paul gets a bad rep. He was
the guy that they ousted first, though.
Sure, but I mean, they had a shitty owner. Sorry, they had a bad owner. They had an overrated coach. His Robin was trash. Like that team was always overachieving. Nobody thought that though.
That overrated coach, as I agree, went to a team with worse personnel though, and is getting more out of them.
Yeah, but he has a better player that he had.
Agree that he should have gotten more out of that Clippers team.
I look back at that team. There's not a lot of guys there outside of Chris Paul. You feel differently about Blake Griffin, though. We've had this conversation. Because I think Blake Griffin is trash. And I don't think that Clippers team had a chance to win a title. So the fact that they blew a 3-1 lead, I don't care. They were better than that Houston team, but they weren't going to regularly beat the Spurs or the Warriors or the Lakers of that same time.
So I know we talked a little bit about teams that made the bubble that are just not showing up the same way that they did last year. For me, the big surprise is with the Miami Heat. I thought that going to the finals, losing the finals, they were going to take a step back. Like they were kind of rallying around, we'll come back next year. We'll be in this same spot. We'll make another run. When you make the finals and lose, you just don't typically get back there again. I thought they were going to take a step back, but if the season were to end right now, they would not be in the playoffs. I don't think anybody thought they could take a step past the fifth seed. So for me, they're the big surprise. You look at that roster, it doesn't really make sense why they're not getting things done. For you, who's the biggest team that was in the bubble last year that's regressed the most?
Ooh. So who's regressed the most? The Mavericks. Who do I think is the biggest surprise? Denver. Sorry, you switched up the terminology, and I had already had an answer ready to go. I think the Nuggets are the most surprising by far because I think they were the youngest of those four teams. And I also think they brought back, like last year, the Nuggets were inherently injured. Michael Porter Jr. still wasn't getting minutes, and Gary Harris was gone most of the bubble. So to come back complete, I thought they'd just be poised. Michael Porter Jr.'s hurt. Jokic is playing his best ball, but somehow it's not translating to Jamal Murray or wins. I'm concerned with them a lot. But the Mavericks have regressed. I mean, they went from being the best offensive team ever to being they're shooting 32% from three-point range. They have two starters shooting under 30% from three-point range.
Was I asleep when they became the best offensive team ever?
They had the highest offensive rating ever. That's not an opinion. They had the highest offensive rating efficiency ever. It's an analytic stat, not mine. You like
I don't
that,
know.
don't
I don't
you?
know what backward stat they broke to make them have that rating, but I don't think they had the personnel to be worthy of that rating.
The rating is the rating. It's based on numbers. The rating is the rating. That's what their play. That's what their percentages said. It's not an opinion.
Sure. So one thing that I do want to bring up, because I'm sure there's probably a guy in New York watching the show right now that'll dog me if we don't give them any attention. The New York Nets have won a few straight games, and Julius Randle is really playing out of his shoes. We actually have a clip from Chris Broussard talking a little bit about how just how good the Knicks are, and talking about their latest surge. We do have that clip. It's the second clip.
Chris, I'm going to start with you. The best performance in the NBA last night was blank.
I got a surprise for you. How about Julius Randle of the New York Knicks? I haven't talked Knicks on TV in like 5 years, all right? So I'm giving them some love. Julius Randle, 44 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, hit 7 threes in a big win over Atlanta. He's making a bid for the All-Star game, and the Knicks have won 3 straight, 5 of 7. And guys, they are currently the 6th seed in the East. And you know what that would mean? A delicious first-round matchup with the Brooklyn Nets. That would be great for Metro New York. I couldn't wait to see that if it happens.
So Aaron didn't get to ask you enough questions about teams that would beat the Nets, but would the Knicks be a team that could knock off the Nets in your estimation?
Not a chance. What I will say, though, is there's a team in the East that could really use Julius Randle. There's a team that, given his skill set and what they're missing, could really use Julius Randle, and they have Marcus Smart instead. Like, I know a team that'd be perfect for Julius Randle. It's the Celtics. But not to go back to the Celtics. Look, the Knicks are on fire for the second time this season. I believe they've won 6 in a row twice, which puts them firmly at 1 game under 500. So they're on a torrid pace.
Sitting in the 6th spot right now, if I were to tell you that this year that who are we just Julius Randle, he's get this. He's averaging more points a game than Anthony Davis, more rebounds a game than Joel Embiid, and shooting a higher percentage from 3-point than Damian Lillard. And we've got one ringing through right now. It could only be Matt White calling in from Queens. Is this Whitey?
Yo, am I the one you were taking the call right now?
Of course, you know it. There's only 10 minutes left in the show. Who else would call us then?
Hey, well, I like to eat my dinner around 7:30, so I like to consume the content while I eat, let it marinate, and then I like to call. That's how I do things.
Well, how do you like that? We're bringing up the Knicks as being a relevant team.
Yeah, and I mean, let me side with the other caller and you, Billy. Like, I don't think the Nets. Like, there's just too much firepower. Like, I still think they're going to win. And you know what? They're still not going to be the most relevant team in New York because I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I know one person that's a Nets fan. I've never met anybody else who's a Nets fan.
If all three of you are correct,
you have 3 superstars on the Nets. And you know who's going on the back page of the Post? Quickly, Derrick Rose. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that they're just not as sexy as that threesome that they've assembled in Brooklyn. I mean, Quickly and Rose have been playing incredible. I think the stat is that they're like a plus 42 when those two guys are in the ball game. So, I mean, I'm amazed that trade happened. We hardly – it was a footnote when we mentioned that last week on the show. But, I mean, Derrick Rose and Quickly have been quite a tandem.
Yeah, as soon as I watched the call last week, and then probably like 5 minutes after the show ended, Derrick Rose entered the game for the first time. And it's night and day, bro. Derrick Rose looks like MVP Derrick Rose. I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, he had a play last night where, signature Derrick Rose like plays back when he was an MVP where he just drives the lane.
And like finishing ridiculous, throwing some English off of it.
Yeah, like jumping in the air and like just staying in the air for like multiple seconds and like adjusting his shot to make a layup. Like, he had one of those plays last night which just flew off the screen. And like the thing is, I have some crazy Randall stats for you, but to keep it on topic, like Quickly and Rose, so they're coming off the bench. They usually come in at the same exact time, and the difference is night and day. You have Elfrid Payton in there. By the way, every Knicks fan despises this man, Elfrid Payton, because he's a bum, and the offense does not move when he's in the game. The offense reverts to just pass Randall the ball and then do ISO Randall. But when they're in the game, Rose, their game just complements each other perfectly because Quickly is deadly from behind the arc, and Rose is still really good at penetrating and then dishing out. So, like, I mean, Quickly, a crazy number, like, Quickly has made 44 three-pointers his first 25 games. So only, like, 5 of the rookies have done that, like Damian Lillard, Iverson, like, a couple of these players. And he's done it in half the amount of minutes played. He's done this in, like, 400 minutes And like, Luka is one of them too. So Luka and Lillard, it took them like over 800 minutes to hit 44 threes in their first 25 games. So like, it just shows he's deadly behind the three. And like, it's just night and day. And Toppin hasn't even been a factor this year. He barely plays. The Knicks are still.
I know he looks like a bum so far
in the last 8 years at least.
Toppin has just been sloppy. He can't even really get on the court, huh?
Yeah, I mean, with Randall in the court, and then like they usually have like Nerlens Noel or Mitchell Robinson before he got hurt.
I got a question.
They throw Toppin in for like 12 minutes, and like he makes a couple nice plays, but he's still learning.
So let me ask you. Derrick Rose and Quickly have both been excellent. They're both coming off the bench. They're a plus 45. Are they role players? And what I mean by that is if you give them extended minutes, do their numbers stay the same or do they start to fall? Like the three-point percentage is great, but it usually falls with more attempts. How good is Quickly? How deadly is he? If he gets more attempts, are they going to rein in at the same level?
I mean, I've seen, how like when Lillard and Curry hit that like logo three, like I've seen him make that a couple times. And this kid is 19 years old. He's the best free throw shooter on the team, and he's the best three-point shooter on the team at just 19 years old. So that just goes to show you how much potential his shot really has. And a couple like honestly, I've been watching the Knicks my whole life. I don't think I've ever seen a point guard with this much promise as Quickly.
You don't think Isaiah Thomas and Stephen Marbury?
Even Frank Ntilikina? Whitey? I know you were repping him hard for a couple of years. No, it's been tough.
That's the difference between this year and last year. We basically upgraded Dennis Smith Jr. and Frank Ntilikina. We upgraded to Quickly and Rose. So it's just – and with Tibbs, do you realize the Knicks have the number one defense in points allowed and field goal percentage, both from behind the three and the 2-point percentage. They're number one in the league, and they're number three in the league defensive metrics. I forgot the exact metrics. It's like – it's just crazy. Like Tibbs – I think he should be a Coach of the Year candidate. I mean, he turned around a team that's been absolute dumpster fire for the last 8 years. And, like, they literally won, 17 games last year. They already have 14 wins this year. It's crazy. It's just, the whole team plays their ass off. This team has camaraderie. They, enjoy playing with each other. And Randall was on the Michael Kay show yesterday, and he actually said they love being coached by Tibbs. He makes you work, but they love being coached by him because they can really feel like they're learning. And also from a Rose standpoint, do you realize how valuable he's been to Quickly from a mentor point of view? He's teaching him all this NBA stuff. And you could just show, every single game he looks better. So, another crazy Randall stat I got here.
Yeah, go for it. Indulge us.
I promise you a crazy Randall stat. Here it is. So he's averaging more points a game than AD and Karl Anthony Towns this year. He's averaging more rebounds than Embiid.
That's what I was just saying before you jumped on. Yeah, go ahead. Keep it going. I was actually reading that as you were calling in, so this is amazing. And are you about to say he shoots a higher three-point percentage than Dame Lillard?
Yeah, and Buddy Hyde, and he has more assists per game than Drew Holiday and Donovan Mitchell.
I mean, he truly has. I was basically saying the same exact thing. If I were to read off and say that he would have more points, he should be shooting at a higher clip from three. I mean, he really is. I mean, if he was on another team that was competing, right, I mean, you'd have to put him up there in the MVP race. Now, if he was on a team that was above the – I mean, that's the
problem with the MVP race right now, is that every team is just kind of log-jammed in the middle, and the three up top don't seem to have a superstar. That's why it's lining up for LeBron currently, because his team is the only great one, and, Donovan Mitchell's probably not going to win it. Joel Embiid cannot win it if he doesn't play once every 4 games.
So, yeah. I got another crazy – because, as Knicks fans, we've all been betrayed by Porzingis. Do you realize Randall has been an upgrade over Porzingis? Do you realize Porzingis' career high points per game is 22.7. Randall's averaging 23. His highest rebounds was 9.5. Randall's averaging 11. He's shooting – they all say, he's a unicorn. He can hit threes. Randall's shooting 40.6% from the three. Porzingis' career high was 39.5. So he's literally an upgrade over Porzingis at this point. I mean, Porzingis also barely plays. He always gets hurt all the time. So I just think the Knicks are going to have a hugely they're not going to beat the Nets, obviously. but their future's bright because they've still got $15 million in cap room next year. So like now that we actually have a winning culture, I think maybe we can actually get a free agent to come here and basically bolster our shooting because our biggest weakness is that we're not a great shooting team. Like
Whitey,
Quickly's our best 3-point shooter. It's crazy.
how many Nets fans do you know?
One.
If the three
And
of you
he's
are
not
right,
lying.
if the three of you are right and the Nets win, you're gonna have a lot more Nets fans. I don't know if you were aware of what the Chiefs and Warriors just did to casual fans, but if the Nets win with all this offense, you'll see a lot of Nets fans in New York.
Not if the Knicks continue to really build something because this is still a Knicks town. I mean, literally, the Nets are not relevant. What will happen is that the Nets will recruit a young generation of fans, but there's no one over the age of 25, 21 who's a Nets fan. I mean, they were the New Jersey Nets. I don't even know if people from Jersey still root for them because they moved from New Jersey. So, like, all the Nets fans growing up are from New Jersey. I don't even know if they're still fans. It's like New York's team is, it's in the Mecca.
The New Jersey
Madison
Nets
Square
never
Garden.
won a ring, though. If Brooklyn wins, that'll be the difference.
Whitey, here's the question for you,
They've
and
been to a couple finals.
we'll leave on this. Here's the question for you: have the Knicks done enough to move the needle in terms of being able to get a guy that's going to come there and try to carry that? Like, have they done enough to get the next Carmelo Anthony? I know how revered Carmelo is there just for coming there and trying to give it a shot to lead you guys. But it seems like even over the past couple of years, if you're to look at it, Kemba Walker, a New York resident, and coming from there, growing up there, playing basketball there, decides to go to the Boston Celtics. Have they done enough to get a superstar to come to a place like the Knicks in the offseason? Do you think with that young core around them, with Tibbs, is that attractive enough to a top-flight free agent at this point?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you why. Because the Knicks have been a dumpster fire for the last 8 years, ever since Melo was gone. And no player wants to come and save the Knicks, right? No player, like KD even said that. He doesn't want to be in charge of saving the Knicks. And all the talk was, James Dolan, worst owner in sports. Now we got Leon Rose and Scott Perry, who are really competent upper management. And we got a coach that everyone respects. And we're winning this year. We're building something. So I think we're not getting like, LeBron, AD. We're not getting like that kind of caliber free agent, but we can sign really good quality players to build, a strong team, like a team like the Raptors, a team that just has a lot of good players. I don't think we need a mega superstar. I just think we could just sign a lot of really good players and just continue to have, one of the best defenses in the league and just improve our shooting. We can compete with anybody.
Well, hey, I think that's a great place to leave it for this one. The light is shining bright on those New York Knicks. We appreciate you calling in tonight, Whitey. Great stuff.
Yeah, let me just say, man, I literally have not watched the Knicks in 8 years because they've been so bad. This is the first time I'm all in on the Knicks. Yeah, they're below 500, but they're one game below 500. They're only a half game behind your Celtics. So to be able to say that this deep into the season is just like, yeah, we're not winning the ring, we're not beating the Nets, but we're really building something. And I would keep an eye on Derrick Rose if I were you because he's really killing it.
All right. Well, we will keep the Derrick Rose watch going. I guess apparently he is still relevant, Frankie. We barely even talked about the trade last week, but we're gonna have to get the Derrick Rose ticker going just in honor of Whitey.
We'll see.
Whitey, thanks for calling in tonight, man. All right. Awesome. Well, hey, that's gonna wrap it up for us. Enough positivity on the Knicks. I'm sure they're gonna get crushed at some point. So
What a weird show. Bashed most people I like, defended most people I don't. What an interesting program.
I gotta like what Nick Smith said at the end too. He's like enough with these silly Randall stats. I'm hitting more threes than Klay Thompson this year. So what? So hey, that's gonna do it for us. We'll catch you next week, same time, same place. We'll look to we're gonna do our best to get a guest on for next week. Have a couple people lined up, so we're gonna be shooting for that. We appreciate everybody for tuning in, staying with us. We'll see you then.
I'm just not sure that Kyler Murray is big enough. This is Tom Brady. He's not just going to retire. Whitey, big fan of the show. Appreciate I've got Bryan Murphy to my left, making sure everything's smooth, crispy, buttery. James Harden is systematically ruining the game of basketball. It's the And there you are, the Chicago Bears with a championship defense. And Mitch, I'm sure Dancing with the Stars is happy to have Antonio back. If you thought you were going to get Zion